Hello everybody, Mobius Y here with another video for Stellaris Console Edition. This video is going to be pretty lengthy and it's long overdue as it's essentially rehashing my old Your First Game video for players who are brand new to Stellaris Console Edition. The thing about Stellaris Console Edition is that there is a lot of information thrown at you right away and it can be very daunting and confusing for new players. So I'm hoping that this video will give you a fresh start and give you an idea of what it takes to expand your empire throughout the galaxy and start on the path to success in Stellaris Console Edition. Now, at the time of releasing this video, I have all the DLC up to and including Distant Stars installed, but this particular video actually has none of the DLC active. There will be a different video with all of the DLC active at a different time for those of you who decide to get all of the DLC and are still brand new to the game. However, this one is more aimed for people who bought the base game or are trying it out off of a subscription such as Xbox Game Pass and dipping your toes in for the first time. So before you actually jump into a brand new game, the first thing I highly recommend doing in Stellaris Console Edition is jumping into the settings and changing a couple things. You can change the camera rotation and panning sensitivity once you're actually in the game. But the two I want to go over is the autosave function, which you can actually change to save every in-game month, every 3 in-game months, every 6 in-game months, so half a year, or every in-game year. Or you can set it to never, but I highly recommend having your autosave save every in-game year. As you're playing Stellaris, time progresses throughout the galaxy at a steady pace to mark the actual passage of time, and various things take certain amounts of time in the game. So it's pretty important that you do have autosaves in case you do want to go back and you forget to have a recent save as you are playing the game. And a single year in the game can have a lot happen. The other thing to do is adjust the safe area at the bottom here. It's very important that you resize the safe area so that you can see all aspects of the HUD in the game. It's a lot better to resize this as you are actually in the game, but do note that it is there. I've heard it both in person and online that people have trouble understanding everything that's going on because they can't see everything that's going on the HUD because their safe area is simply too big to properly fit on their TV screen. So make it smaller if you have to, and make sure that you can see absolutely everything that is going on. The other thing you'll want to do is go over to the sound section and adjust the sound as you see fit. I highly recommend having the advisor volume high enough where you will hear it, as the advisor gives you important alerts and notifications to give you a heads up of what's going on in your empire, and it's important to pay attention to that. And the other thing too is turn the ambient volume way down. I actually only have it 1 notch up from completely muted, but turn it way down because there are some sounds in the game where when you zoom your camera in really close, when looking at certain objects such as some space stations, they play a really, really loud sound, which is quite audible and overpowering if the ambient volume is high enough. So I highly recommend dropping that down, otherwise you'll have a difficult time hearing advisor notifications and various other things. Now, as I am recording this on Xbox, there are some differences in the button layouts. For example, left trigger and right trigger on Xbox are L2 and R2 respectively. On the PlayStation, left bumper and right bumper is L1 and R1. Clicking the left stick is L3. Clicking the right stick is R3. The X button for Xbox is square on the PlayStation. The Y button is triangle. The B button is circle. And the A button is X. And typically the start button is options and the back button is the touchpad when you click down on it. Pretty much everything else stays the same, the left and right sticks and the directional pad, of course. And I do play on the default control scheme, so when referring to which buttons do what, be aware that I am playing on the default control scheme. So if you change your control scheme, some of the buttons may behave differently than what I describe in this video. So once you've got that sorted out, that should only take you about 2 minutes, maybe 3 tops to figure out. You want to jump into a brand new game. This will be your very first game, and you'll see that there are 3 options to pick when starting a new game. You can select an empire, and there are some pre-made ones that come with the game, with their own backstory and their own empire setup. You can select a randomized empire, which I highly recommend avoiding until you are familiar with Stellaris Console Edition and have an idea on the various game mechanics within it. Or you can create a brand new empire. Creating a new empire is one of the great pleasures in Stellaris Console Edition. They offer a huge amount of customization, from selecting the appearance of your species, making them whatever you want to make them look like. You could even make them look like some kind of a clam. You pick their physical species traits, all the way down to picking the various ethics that your empire values and the civics that drive that empire towards its own personal progress. It's one of the great joys of Stellaris Console Edition, but for your first game, I highly recommend avoiding that as well. Maybe for your second or third game, dip your toes into creating a brand new empire once you have a bit of a better grasp on the mechanics. But for starters, you want to go to Select Empire. Now, normally you'll just see for your first game a list of the pre-made empires, but when you create a custom empire, they will also be included in this list when you select an empire. So you can see that I have a bunch of custom empires that I could go back and choose to play with, but we're going to be ignoring them for the time being. So for the pre-made empires, you have things like the United Nations of Earth, the Tzin Empire, the Kingdom of Yondarim, all the way down to the Blorg Commonality, which is kind of a meme empire within the game. I highly recommend going with one of the human empires. So you have the United Nations of Earth, which is more focused on unity and diplomacy and peaceful relations with other empires. And if you prefer a more militaristic approach, where you wish to enact your supremacy amongst the Xeno scum, you can play as the Commonwealth of Man, which is a alternative human-centric empire. For your first game, though, and for the sake of this video, I recommend just doing the United Nations of Earth. It's a very simple, straightforward empire to play with. And once you select your empire, you're then given the galaxy options, which you can custom tailor to your needs. I do highly recommend sticking with mostly default settings. We're just going to change a few here. We'll keep the galaxy size to medium. That way it's not too big that it can feel quite empty, and it's not too small that you don't encounter AI empires to interact with for a long time. Galaxy shape, we'll make it a two-arm spiral galaxy, as they tend to be some of the most interesting galaxy shapes. For AI empires, I recommend dropping that down to about 4. This will give you enough space to explore the galaxy on your own before dealing with encountering AI empires, and reduces the likelihood that AI empires will be hostile towards you. Advanced AI starts, put that down to off or 0, so that the AI empires don't have an initial bonus at the start of the game. Fallen empires are very old, very technologically advanced empires that behave very differently from regular AI empires. I do recommend experiencing what it's like to interact with them, so set it to 1 or 2 for your first game, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to set it to 1. Tech tradition cost, this is a modifier that speeds up or slows down the game, so to speak. Technologies and traditions are things that your empire unlocks to advance in the galaxy. The lower this modifier is, the faster you will unlock new technologies and new traditions, and the higher this modifier is above the 1.0 mark, the longer it will take. I recommend leaving this on either default or 0.75. Habitable worlds, these are the habitable worlds that you can colonize and start growing populations and constructing a civilization on throughout the galaxy. It's again a modifier. The lower the modifier, below 1.0, means that less habitable worlds will be generated in the galaxy. I suggest turning this up to about 2 times, so there's more habitable worlds in the galaxy and you have an easier time finding habitable worlds to colonize. Mid-game and end-game start year, these basically just mark the earliest that major events can happen, and they are game-changing. So I recommend giving yourself a little more time. Turn up the mid-game start year to, say, 2350, and the end-game start year to either 2450 or even 2500, just to give yourself a little more time as you familiarize yourself with the game. For the victory year, this basically declares a winner depending on the score of all the empires within the galaxy. Turn it up to like 3,000 if you intend to stay with the same game for a long time. Me personally, I only ever play a game for maybe 300 to 400 in-game years before I start to get bored and want to start a new one. So 3,000 is a really long time, but you can turn it up that high for your first game. For the difficulty, the default is Ensign, which is one tick above the easiest difficulty, which is Cadet. I recommend either Cadet or Ensign, as there are practically no bonuses given to AI empires to their production, so that they'll have a tougher time getting a leg up on you. Keep scaling difficulty off. Have AI aggressiveness dropped down to low. This will reduce the likelihood that a hostile empire that considers itself superior to you will actually declare war on you and attack you. So set it to low so you have more time to kind of settle in and get used to the game itself. Empire placement is one that new players really get caught up on. There is an option to have it set to clusters where the empires will spawn much closer together than you would expect. Keep it to random so that the empires are spread throughout the galaxy, giving you some more leg room to kind of explore and discover new things and expand your own empire. Advanced neighbors, keep that set to off. Most everything else can be set to default except for Iron Man mode. This is completely up to you. With it off, you can save the game at any time. You can have multiple save states. You can have multiple save files for the same game. So you can rejoin at any point on top of the auto-saving that will occur. But it is not eligible for achievements. To enable achievements, you have to have Iron Man mode on. I recommend playing with Iron Man mode on. When it's on, the game will automatically save every in-game month, and it will save whenever you decide to quit to take a break. And there is only ever one save file that overwrites itself, so you cannot save scum. So it's a lot like games like XCOM, for example, with their Iron Man mode. For the sake of this video, I'm going to leave it off. And that should be all I really need to go over in terms of the actual game settings. This is an adequate startup for your very first game. So let's go ahead and jump in, and we'll go over what you need to do in your first game to start your empire on the path to success. So you hit the A button when you're satisfied with the settings. It asks you, are you sure you want to start with these settings? You can hit B to cancel and tailor them even further if you want, or just hit A to hit OK, and in this loading screen is when the galaxy is actually being generated. Every galaxy, every game you play, in Stellaris Console Edition, the galaxy is procedurally generated, so it is never the same. You might start off with the same size or the same shape or have the same number of empires, but your empire will likely not start in the same area. You won't have the same nearby star systems, etc., etc. No game of Stellaris Console Edition is ever the same, and that's one of the great joys of Stellaris, in my personal opinion. So at the start of the game, you get this little box that shows up. It basically gives you a brief rundown of what kind of empire you're playing, and the box on the right is just some flavor text, which gives some background on your species history, and you can use the right stick to scroll through it. Once you're ready to start, you hit the A button to begin, and you are taken to your home system. So whenever you are playing Stellaris, when you're looking either in the system or at the galaxy, you use the left stick to move the camera around and thus move the cursor in the center around. And you'll notice that there's an orange arrow that appears on the cursor whenever you're close to something, such as a planet or even ships that you have under your control. You never have to put your cursor directly on top of something in order to be able to select it. You can just put it close by, and once you see that orange arrow, it will also highlight what it is you are going to select if you hit the A button. To adjust the camera's rotation, you use the right stick, so up or down on the right stick will alter the angle, and left or right on the right stick will pan it and rotate it around the cursor itself. To zoom in and out, you use the left trigger to zoom out, or press down on the right trigger to zoom in, and you can zoom in quite far and get a much more detailed view of the various things within a system. For example, these are some of the ships that you start with whenever you begin a brand new game, which you can also select and give orders to. The other thing you want to know what to do is to take a look at the entire galaxy from being in your home system. Click the right stick, and you switch to the galaxy view, and you can zoom out with the left trigger and see exactly where in the galaxy your empire starts off in. So we're actually in the very southern hemisphere of this particular galaxy, with quite a ways to go to get to the galactic core. You can see that it's a spiral galaxy because we have a spiral that comes out from the core to the north and all the way out to where we are near the tip of that particular spiral arm. Then another spiral arm comes out this way and goes around to the top. So a 4-arm spiral galaxy has 4 of these spirals. A ring is basically a big ring of stars around the galactic core with no stars being close to it. And an elliptical galaxy is just a big circle that essentially forms a giant blob of stars extending out from the galactic core. So spiral galaxies tend to have the most interesting shape, and that's why I recommend going with it. So let's go back to our system view here. In order to zoom back in on the system, you just need to move the cursor close to a star system you wish to look at and click the right stick again, and you go back into your system. So the reason why I said it's important that you adjust the safe area, which you can do in the settings screen right now. As you can see, the HUD is getting bigger and smaller on the edges there. And the reason why it's important is because there are 4 major sections of the HUD, and each section can be accessed by pressing the relevant direction on the directional pad. So if you want to look at the top of the HUD, you press up on the D-pad. To look at the bottom, you press down on the D-pad, etc., etc. We're going to go through those individual sections right now, starting with the bottom of the HUD. Now, the first thing to note is in the lower left area of the HUD, there is in fact a blinking pause icon next to an icon for the Y button with 3 orange arrows, and you can see the number 2200-0101 next to it as well. This marks the timer in the game. Stellaris Console Edition has its own galactic time, which is measured in days, months, and years. And every game starts off in the year 2200, and it's the first month starting at the first day. So if you hit the Y button to unpause the game, you'll see that the day timer is in fact going up every second or so. To pause the game again, you can hit the Y button. This will give you more time to examine things and give orders to your ships or your units. You can also adjust the speed at which time progresses by holding the Y button or triangle. With the 3 green arrows filled in, that's the fastest time. With only 1 filled in, that's slowing time down, but it's still progressing. And then the middle one, which is default, is with the 2 green arrows filled in. And you adjust that by holding down the Y button, and it will keep adjusting the speed of time until you let go of the Y button. And of course, you can adjust the speed of time and pause at practically any moment in the game, so it's extremely helpful to know that. The other portions in the bottom HUD, when you hit down on the D-pad, we have some little notifications here at the bottom, and more notifications will appear here as time progresses and things happen within the game, such as your science ships have surveyed a new system, you've encountered an alien species, or somebody has declared war on you. Numerous events and alerts will appear at the bottom of the screen here, and the advisor will notify you of a lot of them. So pay attention to the alerts here. Whenever you see one pop up, you can simply hit down on the D-pad to go through the alerts, move the cursor over one in question, and press the A button to either acknowledge it and deal with the problem, if there is one, or to simply take a look at what's going on that caused that alert. The other portions of the HUD, at the very top of the HUD, which you can access by pressing up on the D-pad, this is basically a rundown of what's happening within your empire. So the major ones to be concerned with are your production of resources. So the first amount of symbols here, and there's a lot of them, there's about 9 as a matter of fact along the top here. These first 9 symbols basically amount to how much resources your empire is producing. And we'll start from the left to the right. So the very first symbol here is a yellow C with a lightning bolt through it. This resource is for energy credits. This symbol is for energy credits, I should say. Now, you'll see that there's a little number beneath the symbol. It says 100 and plus 20. So 100 means that that is your current stockpile of that resource, in this case, energy credits. And the plus 20 means that every month that passes in the game, your empire generates another 20 energy credits. So at the start of the next month in the game, which will take just a couple days here, you'll see that we'll jump up to 120 energy credits, 128 apparently, and we are generating 28 energy credits each month. Sometimes the calculation is a little off, and once the month rolls over, it corrects itself to give you the accurate calculation. So we now have 128 energy credits to spend within our empire, and we're generating 28 each month. So that's what that means. Energy credits are used for a myriad of things. You spend them in the market. You spend them to enact empire-wide edicts that affect numerous aspects of your empire. So they're also used as a galactic currency for trading with. So they're one of the more important resources in the game. The next one over is the red gem. These are minerals. We have 137 stockpiled, and we are generating 37 each month. Minerals are mostly used for constructing things like buildings and districts on your planets, which create jobs for your population to work in. And when your population is working jobs, they are producing resources for you. And you can improve the generation of your resources by providing more jobs for your population. Minerals are also used to construct certain space stations, namely mining and research stations, which we'll go over in a little bit. And those also generate more resources for you as you build them in space. The next one over is kind of a green apple icon, or a green fruit, a green alien fruit, if you so choose. This represents food. Now, food is necessary for feeding your empire, especially if you are playing as an organic empire. And since we're humans, we need food for our population to survive. Food is basically just used as the basic sustenance for your organic pops to survive and thrive. The next one over, this orange icon, is consumer goods. These are like the extra things to keep your organic pops or populations happy. So where food is the nutritional sustenance for them, consumer goods are things like television sets or refrigerators or fancy diamond rings, that kind of stuff. That is represented by the consumer goods resource. And it is important that you are generating a certain amount throughout the entire game. The next icon over is a bit of a multicolored one. It's a little bit of a lighter purple. This is probably the most important resource in the game, and this is alloys. Now, alloys are they're very similar to minerals in that you use them to construct things. But in this case, they have a much more military application. You use them to construct your various ships, including your military ships, as well as things like science ships and colony ships. You also use them to construct what are called star bases to expand your empire's territory and extend your reach and bring more star systems under your control. Alloys are super duper important, and you'll always want to be trying to increase your production of alloys throughout the game, especially in the middle to later portions of the game. We'll get back to alloys in a little bit. The next icon over actually does bring a little drop down of 7 strategic resources. These are extremely valuable and much more rare than the previous 5 resources we just went over. And hopefully I'm going to have to trust that you'll learn about them as the game goes on. Various strategic resources are necessary for constructing certain buildings, and especially for equipping various weapons on your military ships. So they are important to discover and acquire them as you play the game. The next one over, the dark purple icon. This is influence. It is generated a little bit every month. There are ways to increase the amount of influence you get, and influence is exactly what it says. It represents the influence your empire has both within itself and throughout the galaxy. It is used to do all sorts of things, from expanding your empire's borders by constructing star bases, as well as enacting empire-wide edicts that affect the progress and production of your empire. It's a very valuable resource, and there's only a little bit generated each month, but this value can go up as time goes on. The next one over, these bright blue, almost white kind of chain links that form a cross icon. This is unity. This represents the overall feeling of togetherness that your empire has, that their population has amongst themselves. Unity is accrued over time and is used to unlock traditions, which we'll get to in a little bit, and represents one major aspect of your empire's progress. The next one over, the little microscope thing, represents the total amount of science you are producing. And when you move the cursor over it, you can see that there's a little drop down that's generated and shows how much science in the 3 fields of science you are in fact generating. The 3 fields of science are physics, society, and engineering. Physics is represented by a blue lithium atom icon. Society is represented by a green wireframe sphere. And the engineering branch of science is represented by a bright orange yellowish gear icon. The more science that your empire generates, the faster you unlock the faster you unlock new technologies, and unlocking technologies is the #1 major way that every empire progresses in the galaxy in a game of Stellaris. The following icons are just status of your empire. You have things like empire sprawl and administrative capacity on this icon. I have a specific video discussing what this is and how you can make it work for you. Go check it out once you are familiar with the game. Next up, you have empire systems that are directly under your control, followed by how many colonies your empire has, the total population within your empire, your starbase capacity, and your naval capacity. For the sake of this video, we're not really going to worry about these 6 icons in the top right. They're not nearly as important as the other ones that resemble the accrual and generation of resources. So, by backing out of that top section, we can now check out the other sides. On the right-hand side, but when you hit right on the D-pad, you gain access to what's called the Outliner. This is an easy breakdown of various things that are going on within your empire, but it also lists the planets, the star bases, the shipyards, and the ships within your empire. So it's an easy way to to select various units within your empire and quickly access them without having to stop what you're doing. If you're checking out, for example, a space battle that's going on, but you have a planet that can construct a new building, for example, and you don't want to move the camera all the way back to your home system or the colony in question, you can simply move your cursor over to the outliner and select something, and it will open the screen relevant to what you've done. You can also select your military fleets from the outliner, etc., etc. It's super handy, and it's just an easy way to access the various units under your control. At the very bottom are outliner options. There's really only one. You can decide to hide the outliner, and what this does is when you are not in the outliner, it will actually disappear. And then it will reappear when you hit right on the D-pad to open it again. I personally like having the outliner visible at all times because there are various status symbols that you will learn as you play, and it's nice having them visible at all times, I think. And the last section of the HUD is on the left here. This is all various aspects of controlling your empire. There's a couple that I'm going to go over, which are the most important. The first screen here is your government screen. It has a couple different tabs that show the status of your empire and what kind of government is in control. Next up, you have the contact screen. You use this to open it up and take a look at the other empires you have encountered in the galaxy and communicate with them. The next screen down is the situation log, and I'm going to open this up, and you'll see that there's multiple tabs. The first tab is the situation log, and by changing to another tab, you simply have to press either the right or left bumpers, or R1 or L1 on the PlayStation. So the situation log is major special projects that can be completed for various bonuses or resources. It's kind of like a quest log. It's stuff that you can complete as time goes on, that are available for you to do within the galaxy. By hitting the right bumper, there's another tab for anomalies. This is the anomaly tracker. As your science ships explore the galaxy and survey new systems, they will discover what are called anomalies. These are fanciful things that they've discovered, which will take them extra time to research and study in order to complete them. And anomalies are always very useful to complete because they tend to give you bonus resources and the like. So if there's any anomalies that you did not study immediately once you discovered them, they will then appear in your anomaly tracker, and you can use the anomaly tracker to go back and complete them at any time. And the final tab is the victory screen. This basically gives a breakdown of all the empires within the galaxy and ranks them based on their score, and whichever one is ranked #1 will win the game once the victory year has arrived over time. So right now, because we have not encountered any other AI empires, it only shows us, and we're currently ranked #2. So the most important part of tab of this screen, I should say, is the situation log. It's kind of like a quest log. You can take a look at it at any time to see the various special projects and events that you can experience as you play Stellaris and explore the galaxy. So moving on, the next screen down is the technology screen, and it's represented by the three flasks of different colors. This is one of the most important screens that you will want to familiarize yourself with immediately. By opening this up, there's two different tabs. The first tab is the current research tab, which shows the various branches of science, again, physics, society, and engineering, and which technological project those branches of science are working on. Each branch of science has different kinds of technologies to unlock. For example, physics can improve the generation of your empire's energy. It also gives you things like energy weapons such as lasers and plasma cannons for your military ships, and also things like deflector shields for your ships. Society improves the government structure within your empire, as well as the military doctrine within your empire. It allows you to build more ships and have bigger fleets, as well as improves the overall production within your empire and improves the growth and expansion of your empire. Engineering science is basically what it says, engineering. You research bigger ships here, so you can build bigger military ships that can house more weapons and stuff like that. You also learn some types of weapons here, for example, missile weapons and kinetic weapons with things like mass drivers and kinetic artillery. That kind of stuff is in engineering. There's also improvements to things like armor as well in the engineering tree. So this is probably going to be the most important screen to familiarize yourself with. We'll come back to this in just a second when we select our first technology projects. You can also hit the right bumper to go to the Researched tab. As time goes on and you unlock more technologies, this screen will become a lot more filled out and will take even longer to load, as a matter of fact. Every empire starts with all these basic starting techs at the start of the game to basically signify the beginning of its journey throughout the galaxy. And as you unlock more technologies, this list will get bigger, and you can go through and look at what technologies you have in fact researched. And the nice thing is that it shows you what order you have unlocked them in. So that's super handy. So that's the technology screen. We're going to skip the next two screens, which is the market and the cosmography screens. We're going to go down to the other super important screen that you need to get familiar with, represented by the green and orange face masks. This is the society screen. When we open it up, we take a look at our traditions and ascension perks in the first tab. This is the traditions tab. We'll come back to this in just a second. There are two other tabs which are quite important in the society screen, namely your policies. Your policies determine the various interactions that go on within your empire. You can change these policies at almost any time, but you cannot flip-flop back and forth. For example, if you decide that your war philosophy, you don't want unrestricted wars where you can declare war at any time on anybody with a valid reason. You just want to sit back and worry about if people declare war on you and defend yourself by changing it to defensive wars. Once you do that, you cannot change it back to unrestricted wars for 10 in-game years. So whenever you change a policy, you cannot simply change it back whenever you want. You do have to wait the minimum time limit of 10 years. And the other screen here is your Empire Edicts, where you can spend some resources, for example, influence, or sometimes energy credits, or various strategic resources to give your empire a bonus for a whopping 10 years. And these can be reactivated once they run out to continue giving your empire that bonus. So that's the policies and edicts tabs. But the most important one you want to familiarize yourself with in your first game is this traditions screen. So there are 7 tradition trees, and each tradition tree gives you various bonuses. As time goes on and you acquire more unity to unlock these traditions, there's several steps to completing these traditions, and each tradition is broken down by the various bonuses within your empire. For example, prosperity makes various things a little bit cheaper, and also increases the generation of resources from various aspects of your empire. Supremacy increases the military might of your empire, as well as makes it easier to expand just a teeny tiny bit. Expansion is for improving, as it says, the expansion of your empire's borders. And discovery is for exploring the galaxy and increasing the amount of science and technologies that your empire progresses with. So there are 3 steps to your traditions. When you adopt a tradition, which is the very first thing you must do before you can unlock any of the 5 traditions in the whole tree, you get a certain bonus. So by adopting the discovery tree, the speed that our science ships research anomalies is increased by 20%. You then have access to the 5 remaining traditions in that tradition tree, and there is a bit of progression in each tradition tree. For example, we cannot unlock this one in the bottom right, Faith in Science, without getting the 2 before it, as indicated by the little green arrows. So you get additional bonuses from each of the 5 traditions that you adopt within the tradition tree itself. And once you have completed that tradition tree, there is an extra finisher effect that you get. So adopting discovery increases the speed that we research anomalies with our science ships. We get 5 additional bonuses from these additional traditions in the Discovery Tradition tree, and when we finish adopting all of the traditions in the Discovery tree, we increase our research speed by 10%, so we get our new technologies just a little bit faster. And upon completing a tradition tree, an entire tradition tree, you also unlock the ability to select an Ascension perk. There are 8 Ascension perks in total that you can choose, but there's way more than that you can choose from. And the Ascension perks will differ depending on what kind of empire you are playing. For example, if you can play as a machine empire, you will have very different Ascension perks from a regular organic empire. Ascension perks are a one-time pick that can drastically change the way your empire plays or give them really big bonuses. So choose wisely. They cannot be changed once you have selected them, and some of them are extremely powerful, and while some of them are just kind of meh. Hopefully we'll get to pick an Ascension perk by the end of this video so I can give you an idea of what's going on. By the later stages of every game of Stellaris Console Edition, any empire you're playing, regardless of its build and its setup, will unlock all of these tradition trees and have 8 Ascension perks. That happens in every game, provided you don't get wiped out super early. So that's extremely normal. The important thing is determining which tradition trees and Ascension perks, well, more specifically, which tradition trees you will be adopting and completing first. I highly recommend that most every game you play, you either start with Expansion, if you intend to colonize new worlds really, really early, or start with Discovery, if you're more interested in exploring the galaxy and discovering what's out there. This will also increase the amount of science you're producing, so you will learn new technologies a little bit faster by completing the Discovery tree first. So again, Expansion or Discovery, I recommend starting with either of those, and we'll do that in just a minute. The other screens, I'm not going to get into too much. There's the people screen, which is where you can do things like recruit leaders, but you can also do that another way. The fleets and ships opens up the fleet manager and the ship designer. These are very important tabs, which I'll have to go over in another video. I do recommend that you go to the ship designer and hit this auto-generate designs. Deactivate that because it's just a pain in the ass to have it on. The next several screens, you have the war screen, which is only available and can be opened when you are at war. The claims screen, that's a completely different mechanic, which I'll have to go over another time. The Federation screen is available once you have formed an alliance with another AI empire and create a federation with them. And the map modes, I just recommend leaving it on default, as that is adequate enough. And play around with it if you get the chance, but for the most part, we're going to ignore it during this video. Okay, so that was a lot. It's a big information dump. I totally understand that, and it's a very large amount of stuff that's thrown at you right away. This happens for every new player that starts playing Stellaris Console Edition. It's completely normal, so I'm hoping that this gives you an idea of what to do. So, we've got a little less than 20 minutes left in this video, so there's a few things that you want to do in every game before you actually unpause the game and keep carrying on with stuff. The first thing we want to do is we want to start exploring the galaxy, and you do that with one of your civilian ships. You do that with your science ship. So you select the science ship in the outliner, and it will select it in the galaxy for you, and you can actually click the left stick to instantly snap the camera on your science ship, and this will allow you to zoom the camera in really close to it if you want, get an even better look at it. So science ships are one of the most important ship types in the early stages of the game, because they expand out from your home system and explore the other systems of the galaxy. So I clicked the right stick to go back to the system view. Now there's two ways that your science ships can explore the galaxy. What you do is you move your cursor over a nearby star system and then press the A button, and you get the option to give the order to explore this system or survey this system. It's very important that your science ships survey neighboring systems and unexplored systems, because they'll scan all the planets and stellar bodies in that star system for resources and anomalies and the like, and that is how you can acquire additional resources for your empire to use them to build more ships or build more star bases or construct new colonies and the like. You can also chain multiple orders with the X button. So if I move my cursor over this second star system, instead of hitting the A button, I'm going to hit the X button to chain an order, and I'm going to select Survey System again. Now you see that there's an orange line going to this first star system, and then there's another one extending to this one down here because I chained an order. We can chain a third order for this science ship to go and survey this system as well. This will keep our first science ship busy for the next little while, surveying these 3 star systems, looking for habitable worlds that we can colonize, looking for resources that we can exploit to increase our empire's production, etc., etc. So it's very important that you get your science ships out exploring the galaxy as quickly as possible, and it's doubly important that you make sure you have more than one science ship to do that. So to construct more ships, you need what's called a shipyard, and shipyards are constructed at these space bases, or star bases I should say, and they have a shipyard module on them. So by selecting a star base and pressing the A button, it takes you to the starbase screen. And you can do that in the outliner as well by hitting right on the D-pad and selecting that particular starbase. So the first tab in this screen is the starbase tab. You can see that in the modules, we have a maximum of 6 modules we can build. Right now we can only fill in 2, and one of them is a shipyard module. This allows us to build ships at this particular starbase. So we hit the right bumper twice to go to the shipyard tab, and we can order this particular shipyard to construct ships. We could construct a colony ship if we had the resources. We could construct another construction ship. We could construct a military corvette. But for the sake of this video, and every time you play the game, you're going to want to use your first batch of alloys to construct a second science ship. Now this is going to cost us 100 alloys, as shown in the lower left hand of the box there, and in the bottom right is in fact a timer saying how long it will take to construct this ship. It will take 60 days, so that is 2 in-game months. So we're going to queue up constructing a second science ship, and when we unpause the game, you'll see that the timer on the right-hand side in the shipyard queue is in fact going down. So we're down to about 40 days before this second science ship has finished its construction. So you want to queue up a second science ship as early as possible in your game. The other thing you want to do is you want to have your construction ship build various orbital stations to generate more resources. And you can do that by either creating a mining or constructing a mining station or a research station. So a mining station is constructed around a planet like Saturn here, which is in fact generating some energy credits. So by moving the cursor near it and pressing the A button, I get the option to order the construction ship to construct a mining station around Saturn. This will cost me 100 minerals to do, and you'll see that the outline, a little green outline of a mining station appears, and when I unpause the game, the construction ship starts flying over to do that. You can also construct a research station which generates science for you. So here on Venus, you can see that it is actually generating 3 additional points of society research. Okay, so our second science ship is done. We'll get back to that in just a second. So to construct a research station, it's the exact same way. I am in fact going to chain order for our construction ship to construct a research station around Venus. And as you can see, the option is now build a research station. So if I hit the A button on build a research station, I spend another 100 minerals, and our construction ship, will fly over to Venus and build a research station as soon as it is done its current order. And our production of society science will change from plus 25 to plus 28 points. And that will help us unlock new technologies even faster. So with our new science ship, you actually have to give it what's called a leader. And leaders are the various special persons within your empire that can complete specific tasks. Now, as you can see in the galaxy view, I cannot have this science ship fly to a new unexplored system. I can have it fly over here to Barnard Star, where the other science ship has already explored. The reason for this is because it needs a science ship manning this particular, it needs a scientist leader, manning the science ship in order to explore. So to give this particular ship a scientist, we have to select the ship in question, and you can see in the lower left there are in fact 3 different tabs. There's the command tab, which allows you to assign orders to the ship or fleet in question. But by hitting right bumper, we go over to the Manage tab, which gives us access to different options. And one of them is this option here with the big orange plus icon. This is the Recruit Leader order. So we're going to hit A, and this takes us to the People screen where we recruit a new scientist. So there are other scientists already within our empire, but they already have jobs to do. For example, these 3 scientists at the bottom of the list are leading our research branches and giving us new technologies. This top one is already commanding the other science ship that we started with, so we need to recruit a new one. And to recruit a new scientist, or to recruit any leader, it normally costs about 200 energy credits. That value can go up and down depending on various bonuses and effects within your empire. So each new leader that you recruit actually has a bonus trait that comes with it. For example, these 2 scientists at the top are considered experts in these various fields of research, so they have a bonus to the research speed of those types of research projects. I'm just going to go with the one at the bottom here because he has bonus experience gain. As your leaders do things, depending on what job they are assigned to, they gain experience and they can level up and become more proficient at those jobs. So I chose the one that gains bonus experience at when it is working. And in order to select him, you can see that there's now the green available option there. So I'm going to move the cursor over him and press the A button. And now he is manning this science ship. And going back to the galaxy view, I can send this science ship out to survey these other star systems that have yet to be explored as well. So I'm just going to chain up a few survey orders, then I'm going to unpause the game. The one final thing you want to worry about before actually unpausing the game is you want to select your first technology projects. And you do that by going to the bottom here. You can see that there's an icon for physics and society and engineering research. We're currently not working on any technologies in any of these branches. So to select one, you can either go to the technology screen itself by hitting left on the D-pad and then going to this technology screen, and it'll open up this screen that we saw earlier. Or you can press down on the D-pad to the relevant notification indicating that you have completed your current research project or that you are not working on one right now. Press the A button and it will take you to this screen where you choose your current technology projects. Stellaris technologies are randomized. Well, I should say semi-randomized. They do not show up in the same order every time. They will show up in a different order pretty much every game. But good ones to go with are, for example, in the physics branch, we're going to choose quantum theory because that increases the amount of physics research we get from our researchers on our home planet. For society, we're going to go with, let's do off-world trade companies. Sure, that's an okay starting pick. Kind of had some bad options there, but that's all right. And then in engineering, we're going to go with nanomechanics because, again, that increases engineering research from our researchers on our home planet. So more research is good. Getting technologies as fast as possible is always super, super duper awesome. Okay, so our construction ship has in fact finished its construction queue. It has constructed this research station around Venus, and now Venus is generating an additional 4 points of society research for us. And you can check that out at the top of the screen, moving the cursor over the science icon. Oh, let's skip that alert. That was an alert showing that our scientists have discovered something while exploring. We'll get to those in a minute. You can see that we now have 29 society research being generated each month, as opposed to just 25 in physics and engineering. And that's because we've constructed this research station around the planet. Now, the other major thing to have your construction ship do is construct star bases. So this is good timing because Barnard's star has been fully surveyed. So to actually expand your empire, you need to do what's called, you need to construct what is called a starbase. And in order to do this, you need to first have the system fully surveyed. So you have to send out your science ships to survey the galaxy to start with. And once that's done, you can then construct what's called a starbase with your construction ship. As you can see here in this star system down here in Sirius, which is not fully surveyed, I cannot construct a starbase around this system because it's not surveyed yet. But I can around Barnard's star. This will cost me 75 influence and 100 alloys to do so. So I'm going to queue up a starbase around Barnard's star right now, and our construction ship will go off and do that. While we're waiting for that, you'll notice at the bottom that we got a new notification. This indicates that we can adopt a new tradition. So for our first tradition, I'm actually going to go with Discovery, because by adopting the Discovery tree, our science ships have an increased research speed when they're studying anomalies. So I'm going to adopt this, and this will cost me a certain amount of Unity. Now I need to wait for some more Unity to be generated before I can adopt yet another tradition. So that's the first step to adopting traditions. Now I can unlock these traditions in the order that I choose until I complete this tradition tree. Or if I really wanted to, I could adopt a new tradition tree, which I don't recommend. You typically want to finish off an entire tradition tree before moving on to the next one, because if you remember, completing one of these tradition trees also unlocks a powerful ascension perk. So hopefully we can get a second tradition in a little bit. Okay, so this is an anomaly. One of our scientists has discovered an anomaly in the system they are surveying. In this case, it's in Sirius. Now you can see on the right-hand side there, it says relative difficulty hard, and the research time is 465 days. That is because this anomaly is in fact a high-level anomaly, and our scientist is still only level 1. So because it's going to take over a year for this anomaly to get researched, I don't want to do it. So I'm going to hit the B button to back out of that screen. Because I don't want it to do it. If the anomaly was going to take a shorter amount of time, I would queue that instead. Okay, so we just got a new notification. I can now adopt yet another tradition, and I'm going to go with this one in the top left. This one's my favorite. It's called To Boldly Go. It is a Star Trek reference. This increases the speed that our scientists survey by 35% and increases the likelihood that they escape from danger. So I'm going to hit the A button. Are we sure we wish to adopt the To Boldly Go tradition? Yes, this will cost me some Unity, and now you can see that is no longer grayed out, and we are getting the bonuses from that. Okay, so our construction ship, now that it's built a starbase in Barnard's star, you can see that our empire's borders have in fact expanded, and I can tell this construction ship to construct mining stations in this system. And I can do that by selecting the construction ship, moving the cursor over Barnard's star, and ordering it to construct mining stations. Okay, so here's an anomaly that's considered routine. It will take only 84 days. I'm going to research it. So the reason why this will cost 200 minerals to construct these mining stations is because the construction ship is going to construct 2 of them. It's going to construct one around the star itself, which will give us more energy, and it's going to construct one around this planet, which will give us more minerals. That's an easy and convenient way to order your construction ships to build all the stations in the system that are available. And we can only do that once we have constructed a starbase in that system. It's very important that you remember that. Now, the other reason why we want to construct star bases and expand our empire's borders is to colonize new worlds. For example, Sirius 3 right here, you can see it has a little green planet icon around it. That means that it is a very suitable, habitable world. Sirius 2, on the other hand, has a red icon. That means that it is a different kind of ecosystem from our home world. Sirius 2 is, in fact, a savanna world. Whereas our home planet of Earth is a continental world. So we're looking for similar types of ecosystems to our continental world. Sirius 3 is in fact also a continental world, so it is much more acceptable for our species to colonize it and live on it. So I'm going to queue up our construction ship to build a starbase in this system, the Sirius system, by moving my cursor over it, pressing X, and ordering it to build a starbase. Once a starbase has been built in the Sirius system, I will then be able to order the colonization of Sirius 3. And that will take just a moment here. Once our construction ship flies over from Barnard's star, you can see he is heading toward what's called the hyperlane. And now that he's jumped, he's flown through this highway, this FTL highway between star systems, as denoted by the lines connecting them. And now he is in the Sirius system. And he's flying over the Sirius A star to construct that star base and put the Sirius system within our borders. Once that is done, we will be able to get a colony ship to colonize Sirius 3. So a new tradition is available yet again. I'm going to go back into the discovery tree, and now I can select the databank uplinks option, which increases the output of our research stations by 10%. So that research station we built around Venus is now producing technically 4.4 points of society research, and not just a flat 4 as it seems like it is when we look at it in the camera. So I'm going to go back to the Sirius system. You can see that our borders have expanded again now that we have completed that second starbase, and we can now colonize the planet of Sirius 3. The easiest way to do this, rather than go to the shipyard and order the construction of a colony ship and then select the colony ship and order it that way, the easiest way to do this is to simply select the planet in question itself. And this will take you to the planet screen. Move your cursor to the top right where this colonize option is. So select that, and what this will do is give you a list of potential species in your empire that can colonize this planet. Since we only have humans within our empire, we can only colonize this planet with a colony ship of humans. So I'm going to select the human species, and you can now name your colony. I'm simply going to call this Hi YouTube. You can name your colony whatever you want. Do be aware that there is a profanity filter, so not everything is allowed for obvious reasons. And once you hit OK to accept the name of the colony, you can then back out of that screen with the B button, and you'll see that in your shipyard back at the Sol starbase, there is a colony ship under construction. And it takes a full year for a colony ship to be constructed. But in this case, once this colony ship has been completed, it will automatically fly into the Sirius system and begin colonizing this world. We did not have to give it an extra order. It's doing that automatically. I find that much easier than constructing the ship and then selecting the ship itself and trying to find the system where there is a planet that I want to colonize. I know a lot of new players also have that same problem with finding this system where there is a habitable world and recolonizing it. So hopefully that's a much easier method for new players, so you don't get as lost when trying to give commands to your colony ship and expand your empire. So we're actually coming up to the closing of this particular video, as I've pretty much covered everything I want to go over. As your science ships fly out throughout the galaxy and explore the various areas, you'll discover the new hyperlanes connecting the star systems and how to access them. So it's important that you have as many science ships as you can exploring the galaxy, because that will increase the speed at which you explore the galaxy. Now, the first time you complete a research project, you actually do get a big alert for it. So when you select the proper notification at the bottom of the screen, hit the A button, and it immediately takes you to the selecting a new research option. So for our second option, this one's good. Administrative AI. Completing this will increase our overall research speed by 5% in all branches. So we're going to select that one. And we actually also completed a new technology in the engineering branch. So pressing down, going to the notification, going to press the A button, and we have completed nanomechanics. And now I can select a new one. Here's a good one. Powered exoskeletons. This increases the damage of our armies by 5%, as well as the minerals we get from jobs by an additional 5%. So with those ones being selected, you can see that once we go back to the Sol system in just a moment, our shipyard will have completed construction of our colony ship. Now that it's done, we get the alert, and the colony ship is automatically flying over to the Sirius system to colonize Sirius 3 for us. This will give us a new planet in the outliner that we can look at and select at any time and decide to construct things on it. We've got a new tradition. I'm just going to pick this one really quickly. So on your planets and your colonies, it's important to make sure you have enough jobs available for your populations to work. And there's two ways to do that. You can build either districts, which which create jobs for things like generating minerals or food or energy credits. You can also construct buildings, which are for more specialized jobs. For example, you can construct an alloy foundry here, which gives jobs that produce alloys, or you can also construct a research lab, which creates more researcher jobs. I do have a separate video out already regarding districts, and there will be one regarding buildings, but you can also see that there was one for jobs as well. I recommend checking out those videos to help cut your teeth with Stellaris Console Edition. So we got an alert that the Planet High YouTube is in fact being colonized, and you can see it in the outliner now. So it will in fact take quite some time to finish colonizing before we can construct buildings and whatnot on it. And it'll be finished in the year 2210 in the 8th month of the first day. So that basically covers everything I wanted to go over for this particular video. I really hope that new players learn something from this and get a better understanding of what to do in your first game of Stellaris Console Edition. It is a lot of information thrown at you, and it is very daunting. I completely understand that, and trust me when I say this, you are not alone. Everybody goes through that. So I do hope that this gave you a good idea of what you need to do in order to expand your empire throughout the galaxy, explore the galaxy, and hopefully you'll contact new alien civilizations that you can interact with either peacefully or non-peacefully. And don't forget to check out my other videos as well. I have numerous Stellaris mechanics videos regarding things like administrative capacity, districts, jobs, that kind of stuff. And I'm always working on new videos to put out there for helping newer players with learning the game. So if you would like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you're notified when I upload a new video. And of course, check out the links in the description below as well. My Twitch channel, where I stream Stellaris Console Edition at least once per week, typically on Tuesdays. It'd be great if you came by to interact with me as I am playing live. It's a good time to ask me questions as well, as I can answer them as best as I can whilst playing the game. You'll also find a link to my Twitter feed. Give me a follow there. I post important announcements there all the time. And last but not least, my own personal Discord channel. We have about 140 members now. Most everybody there joined because of my Stellaris Console Edition content, so you can talk about the game with other players there, or even set up multiplayer games if you so choose. That's going to be it for this video. It was a long one. I hope it was helpful, and that it wasn't too much of an information dump over the course of this last hour. This has been Mobius Y for Stellaris Console Editions. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again real soon. Take care, everybody.